But yeah, real estate is still, it's the world's largest asset class. Like I always think about that, like put everything else aside, it's the world's largest asset class, and it's still run at a state by state level with no uniformity. So it is being discussed on Capitol Hill of doing national registration and having this move the SEC direction. So that means that you'd probably be needing a combination of licensing because you'd have to transact through a broker. That's still state laws.
Because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
And there it is. We are live on the Meta, on the Facebook, on the, I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because that's not the point of this webinar. Ladies, welcome. It's spring, which is exciting in my opinion. And we've got banks crashing. We've got, our pets' heads are falling off. What the hell is going on? And how is this, how do you guys see what has been happening over the last couple of weeks affecting our industry? And what do you see coming down the pike? Or, Teresa, I know that you're always talking to like super hyper important people. And Sheila, I'm sure you're on those calls as well. What's happening? What's going on behind the scenes that we need to hear about?
There's a banking crisis? What? That's so weird.
I want your opinions. I want to know what you guys think. I mean, you guys are super hip to what's going on. You're talking in some very important rooms. There's got to be conversations happening. What's going on?
All the power is going up to central banks.
Explain that.
Well, that was it in a nutshell.
I know. I'm done here. I'm going to go originate some loans before.
In layman's terms, please.
I want that t-shirt, by the way. Where did you order that? I want to get a copy.
It came from an app, by the way. Our Simple Nexus sent it to me.
Oh, Simple Nexus. Got it. I want to know how you like that. This is a plug for Simple Nexus. Yeah, you're welcome. Simple Nexus. You sent them a shirt and here we go. Like you got your plug.
It's a great app. It's a great app for the mortgage industry.
What's the website? Is it simplenexus.com? Let's fall out here.
As far as I know. Yeah. I don't know, actually, to be honest with you.
I did not know that. That was not staged, you guys. Like,
I just have their swag, but it is cool because realtors can have their own seat in the app, and then they can actually. I think even with us, I don't know if this is all companies, but realtors can even make adjustments to the pre-approval. So, like if we give them a pre-approval up to 500,000, but you give them one for 350, they can toggle it, which I know a lot of realtors have always asked for. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
which is
awesome. Nothing
to do with this webinar, by the way.
That's awesome. I always have to do that manually for the realtors who send me business. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Very cool.
So let's go back to the central bank comment and please articulate what the hell this means.
So that there are different countries, certain countries of certain calibers have the main bank for the country. So all of the power, all the control in several of these countries is all floating up to those central banks. So we knew that this was happening last year. It was going to happen, that there were plans for this. And now it's happening. So Sheila pulled an article this morning. So I feel like Sheila might be the right person to field this question.
Yeah. Give me your take.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. So like she's saying, the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, And the Swiss National Bank announced today coordinated action to enhance the liquidity for the US dollar in their swipe line arrangement. So what Teresa's saying is that banks have made an agreement, central banks have made an agreement around the world to make sure that the dollar holds as the premier currency. And this is especially important today because another announcement came out today that the head of China is in Russia, meeting in Moscow with Putin. And there are talks going on there regarding their relationship. So what does, it sounds like mystical talk, maybe, to people listening.
Conspiracy?
This conspiracy stuff? No, this is actually on the Federal Reserve site, so you can look it up. It was in their news. And ultimately what's happening is the G20, G30, which are like a conglomeration of countries around the world, have made an agreement to work together to release digital assets and switch over from the US dollar to digital assets. And we've been talking to you about that for a year now.
Yep.
So it's all coming to light. It's all happening. There are only 4 countries currently that have rolled out an actual digital asset. One of them being China, which is the biggest hedge that America is working against right now. Obviously, this Cold War we're in with them. The concern is today that the deal is being made with Russia in regards to this because Russia is not supposed to roll theirs out until 2024 now. So are they making a deal? There was a news article that China and Russia are talking about taking their currency back onto the gold standard, which are they going to work together as countries to hedge against the United States or the rest of the world? So it is a very big conversation. It is literally a global conversation that will come down to affect each one of us individually.
Okay. So as we're just, because last time I think we talked about, I believe I directly asked you guys about when we were talking about the digital currency, was it going to replace the dollar? And I'm pretty sure that we talked about this and you guys said, no, it's not going to.
No, we did not say that.
No. Well, no, it was during a conversation. It wasn't like direct answers, but I mean, I was asking those questions. Like, I think my questions were more direct, as in like, is the dollar going away soon? What's that?
Eventually. So think of the euro. Mm-hmm. All of the country's currencies were combined into the euro. Now it's just the euro. That's what's going to happen here. Eventually, it will just be the US digital currency versus the dollar.
How soon is this looking? I know, this is an ongoing conversation that we've been having. And what now that more dominoes are continuing to fall?
Well, the other announcement that just came out is that all the banks are starting to onboard with FedRAMP in April and for the release in July, which is the payment rail for the new digital dollar. That was just announced as well. A lot of announcements have happened over the last 2 weeks.
And that is that a lot of a result because of what's been going on in the banking world?
I would say it's the opposite, actually. The rest of what's going on in the world is a result of that preparing for that on a global scale.
Is that why, like on Silicon's case, I mean, is that why you think people were pulling their money out of the bank? Or was that for different reasons?
Different reasons.
That was because of the spread between how they're borrowing money, basically.
Teresa can go into that because she's literally right down the street and all of her friends had money in that bank.
I was just going to say, Teresa, did you have money in that bank?
I did not. By the grace of God, we were not allowed to get a bank account with Silicon Valley Bank, even though our co-founder was the CTO of Silicon Valley Bank back in the day. This was like 5 years ago. They thought we were crypto at the time, and we have never been crypto. They even put us through this like test with like a VC that invests in crypto projects. And I was like, I don't know why we're talking to you. Like, we're not crypto. Can we just go back to work? Like, this is a waste of time. And they were like, we don't think they're crypto, but still Silicon Valley Bank thought we were crypto. And so we never got a bank account.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's for consortia.
That is for consortia. Yeah. But because I was an equity partner at a global investment bank, I was able to get us a bank account with Chase, which is one of the partners on the Fed project. So the invisible hand guides consortia constantly. We are, by the grace of God, go we. So yes, we're very happy about that. Lots of friends were impacted. And then there were some very strong actions taken by NAR, some goodwill to their portfolio companies through their venture capital arm. So not from dues money, not from that, but from the VC arm. They did some great things to say, we'll help out our portfolio companies. That what we were not affected, but plenty of companies were by the banking, for like the 48 hours where everyone was in panic, but then everyone was able to get their money freed out, right, to pay payroll and move to other banks. So everyone was taken care of. I just thought that was really strong leadership for anyone that's out there from the National Association of Realtors. So they really did a bang up job there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So let me go back to the question, which is when we foresee this coming. I mean, what is your guys' speculation, and how is it that those of us in the industry that are listening and watching this, how is it going to impact us, or how do we need to prepare?
So we get asked this question all the time, and there's a lot of pressure because up until now, my predictions over the last few years, decade have been spot on, unfortunately. So there's a lot of pressure to continue to be right.
Well, then stop making speculation if you're always right.
I'm not the cause. I think we need to study cause and effect. Don't put this on me.
That's all right. I couldn't help but tease you.
So we know that FedNow is getting rolled out in stealth. It's being tested now. It goes into public pilot May to July. And then after July, it's in public release with a select amount of banks. As Sheila mentioned, they're all getting onboarded right now. I think more are getting onboarded right now. So what we were told is that the first rollout of FedNow is happening with the US dollar. Listen to what I didn't say. That means the second rollout of FedNow is fill in the blank. So I've heard some people say maybe by the end of the year. I don't know, maybe it happens in 2024, maybe sooner, because things are moving way faster than we ever anticipated. When you read the headlines, really like the nuclear fallout of raising these interest rates so quickly has created this domino effect that just tipped off, I think, sooner, right? The whole thing is like you raise interest rates until something breaks if you want to cool the economy. Well, seems like some good things have broken here. So now it's Pandora's box. Like how quickly can we catch up with what's happening? What I tell my kids is imagine right now this is what I said to them 2 weekends ago. Imagine in New York, all these war rooms. And I was describing like my days at Merrill, what this looks like. It's these huge conference rooms with like all these data nerds just sitting at their laptop. It used to be piles and piles and stacks of paper that they're all analyzing. These rooms are just packed right now with smart people cranking away and thinking big thoughts and making things happen. So I think that's happening. I imagine there are a lot of people in New York and in Washington who are getting very little sleep these days because things are moving so quickly.
Okay. And let me go back to the question then of
he's still going to keep pushing that question.
Okay. How about this?
So let's say this. We know the rail comes out by end of July. We know that.
The rail.
The payment rail, FedNow.
FedNow.
You have to have the payment rail, right, to move money. So the new rail, the new way of moving money is the FedNow. That's what Teresa and I are working on with them. Okay. So you have to have that before the actual currency comes out. And we're waiting to fly to Boston to meet with them to prepare for our pilot to see if they're going to test the new dollar as well with us, or if they're going to wait until they launch the whole rail before the new dollar is released. So we don't know. We just know it's coming. And we know it needs to come fast with the Putin and Chinese government with what they're doing. And then Saudi Arabia just announced that they're talking about depegging from the dollar to use the Chinese yuan for all of their oil. So not a good sign. Obviously, the government's going to want to get a hold and get in front of that, right? And the Chinese yuan is their digital dollar, the Chinese one.
What's the name of ours? Is it still the Alexander?
Nobody knows. It has not officially been announced.
I mean, that's kind of you don't even have a name for it yet, but yet.
Well, I can't say they don't have a name. I just am
They haven't
saying
announced a name
publicly. Yeah, they've been working on, there was something they've worked on for many, many years on another part of the government with this that people didn't even know about, actually, that Teresa and I have talked about.
Why is this why is the name a secret?
I don't know if it's a secret. I think they're just trying to get their ducks in a row. I mean, the Fed now had everything together before Teresa and I were introduced to them last year. I mean, literally, they had everything ready to go to launch before we were introduced to say, hey, we have this thing. We're talking about doing a pilot. So my guess is they're just getting their ducks in a row.
Are we behind?
I mean, there are two ways to look at that, right? Are we behind, or are we watching everyone else fail fast and we're going to just clean up? I mean, you think about how the United States came to its superpower status, like World War I, we're going to get involved when we can no longer ignore it. World War II, we get involved to be the cleanup crew. Why? I mean, if you look at classic debate, you never want to be the person with the opening statement. You want to be the one who counters, because then you can poke holes in the other person's argument. That's just classic debate. So that's like cross-examining someone. So you want to go second, usually, or in this case, like third, fourth, or 10th with everything that's getting rolled out. So I think that we're watching everyone. The world is our petri dish, and we're just watching how everyone does it. And then we go clean house.
But yet the comment that you made, Sheila, about the Saudis potentially jumping on or not using the dollar to use the Chinese, that almost maybe I heard you differently, but that almost sounded like it would be concerning to us.
I think any government going off of a peg of a dollar, or the U.S. as being a part of that, I would imagine would be concerning to our government, right? I mean, Russia started using crypto back in when the whole Ukraine thing started. They flipped off the dollar and started using crypto, and people went crazy. So I would think anything that affects our economy is going to be of interest to our government, and ultimately to us, because what affects our government affects us.
So what is it that we as the real estate world, and Teresa, thank you for putting that in the chat. So anybody listening or watching, whether you're on Facebook or here on Zoom, I mean, if you got questions, please put them in the chat. There are no dumb questions. I'm by far the dumbest one in the room. So any question is a good question, and I may not be asking something that you're thinking. So please put it in there. And if you're on Facebook, Jake, keep an eye on that and just flip it over here into Zoom. So what is this impact, or how do we need to prepare? Because I have had some realtors reach out and say, they're obviously hearing about this secondhand. And so some of the questions are, well, how do we prepare? What do we need to do as a real estate community? But then they also got consumers saying, what do we need to do?
So I think if your money is clean and you earned it in honest ways and it's in the bank, I think it's going to be fine. I think we really learned, it's like kind of like the canary in the coal mine. Make sure you have your insurance, right, on your deposits. Sounds like we may get an increase on insured deposits here soon. Not sure how quickly that'll roll out. But just be smart. If you have more than 250, set up sweep accounts. I'm not going to say pull money out of XYZ bank and put it somewhere else, because the FDIC insurance is uniform across any depository institution that carries the FDIC insurance. So that's really what you need to know. We're not about panic. We're just about planning. I think that should be actually like our new motto. We should throw that up on the website. Planning, not panic. So I just say, keep an eye on interest rates for our buyers. We still think interest rates are going up by 25 basis points, because if the Fed were to stop raising rates, then they would be admitting that they messed up and that they raised too quickly. So I think enough people on the street are saying that they're still going to raise interest rates by 25 basis points between today and Wednesday. So if you're looking at buying property, now would be the time to write an offer and lock your loan. That's my professional opinion. Could it go the other way? Yeah. But I don't know many people who are in a position to take that gamble if they're sitting on the lines of writing an offer and buying a house today versus not. Like if you're closer to buying a house now, I'd lock. I would between today and tomorrow. I don't give it financial advice, but that's what I've been advising my clients when I know what's coming for the rest of the year. It's just not a gamble that I can do. When I'm looking at $1 million property, which isn't much, I was looking at $1 million condo just last night, and I was looking at the payments being like over $8,000 a month. This is for a condo. This is for like a very average condo, like
average in your market.
In my market. So yeah. So I guess if you're looking at a $500,000 purchase, you're looking at a monthly pity of around $5,000 a month. So how much more can your customers handle as interest rates go up, as we haven't heard anything different? So I would say hold the course. Don't make decisions out of panic and fear. Just know that there isn't any talk as of today, and literally stuff is changing hour by hour. Now, if we looked at the news feed and in the next 6 hours, like you saw another 10 banks go under, I'd be like, well, like, okay, there are only so far 2 banks that have gone under. Let's just keep this in perspective. Only 2 have gone under. And those were tied to crypto, which we predicted, but it's cool. Who's keeping track, right? So, they're saying it's not systemic risk. You got a bank in Switzerland that was purchased over the weekend for $2 billion. And that's where you're seeing the roll up to centralized banking, right? Now, one major bank in Switzerland that is very controllable by Switzerland and the government itself. But as far as bank failures, it's only 2. And the government stepped in and said, we're going to insure all the deposits. We're going to back up all those deposits. So hold the course. Know that interest rates are probably going up on Wednesday. Lock your loans.
What do you think this looks like then? Look a little bit further ahead. Do you follow Barry Habib when it comes to interest rates and what kind of he's predicting come early May?
What does Barry say?
I think I can't say it verbatim because I'm not following it as closely as my people are, but I just know that a lot of people have been sharing it and talking about it, which is that anticipated dip. Now, I don't know if that has changed since the bank failure stuff, but he's been saying that for probably a month or 2 now. And I think a lot of people are holding on to that as the potential shift that could be the bump we need to get the industry flowing again.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people are saying at the end of the year. At the end of the year, interest rates go down. Yeah,
there was something on May 10th or something like that. May 10th, May 12th. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know for sure. I'm just curious because I like to get different perspectives because it's, nobody truly knows. I mean, everybody's speculating, but everybody wants to hear, like they want to hear, like, well, what do I have in store here? Is this ride that we're on, which is rocky as hell, going to continue for the foreseeable future? Do we see that there's potential that things might change? Like, what are your opinions? And you guys are looking at it from different lenses than everybody else,
So if you take into consideration what's literally happening today with the central banks, they're shoring up the value of the US dollar. I have this huge atlas that I look at, and I look at the whole world and try to see perspective here. So they're shoring up the value of the United States US dollar, and they're pushing it as the main currency and the baseline for all the central banks. In order to shore up a currency, you've got to strengthen it, which means you have to stop deflating the currency. You deflate a currency, or a currency gets deflated when you have hyperinflation. So right now they're raising interest rates to shore up the value of the currency. And I think they're going to continue to do this until they release the new digital dollar. I mean, that from a macro level perspective, that makes a lot of sense from the ivory tower point of view, from the Federal Reserve, from the central banks that are all acting in unison now across the world to combat China and Russia. So I think you need to stop thinking with just the mortgage hat, which I love Barry, but I'm not sure how much of like macroeconomics and geopolitics we're talking about here. So you got a war with China and Russia and the possibility of them combining their currencies and their political power to combat the Western world. That's really what's happening here. So I want to tell a story. So over the weekend, was talking, my son got in a shit ton of trouble. Like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was until I started opening my mouth and talking to other humans. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my son is like in so much trouble. So I started talking to his lacrosse coach. And this gentleman is like a super average Joe. He doesn't live in the best neighborhood in Marin. He works really hard, doesn't care about money. So I think this is the key. Doesn't care about money. This guy is like, he is a salt of the earth. I'm going to teach boys lacrosse kind of guy. And I started explaining what I do for work and what's happening. He's like, you must be busy right now. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, isn't there a war with China and the yuan? So from like a super average dude, like I was like, okay, when common people tell it back to me, I'm like, now we got a thing, because it's no longer Sheila and Teresa on our Zoom calls planning the future of our blockchain company. This just hit Main Street, right? This just hit like a very average dude. And I think that's where we are, where people are like, like, wait, I think we are fighting some proxy wars here. What's going on? Like the cobalt for our EVs. Oh, we might not have enough of that because China owns Africa. That's weird, right? Like, and all the trade is going over to the digital yuan. And people are like, why do we care about Taiwan? Why do we care about Ukraine? Well, because our resources for our economy come from these places. And when those are trading in Chinese yuan, what does that do to the US economy, to our currency, to global trade? So that's when you zoom out. I don't think all of this gets repaired by May 10th, going back to your point about Barry Habib. Love Barry Habib. I would actually love to like talk. He would kick my ass in a Zoom meeting. That's for sure. Like with what he knows, I know what I know from a global perspective, but like, that would be amazing. Like that would be like a serious fight. Like I would sell tickets to that if I was a better business person.
I could probably make that happen.
That terrifies me. I'm going to have to read more. Okay.
We know him. We met with him about Consortia a year ago.
Yeah. He's a good dude. I mean, he makes his living on prognostication, obviously, as it relates to interest rates. So it's.
Yeah. He's great at what he does.
Yeah.
But we're looking at it from a different perspective.
Of course. Yeah. Completely different lens. Okay. So I don't know that I got a clear answer on how we need to be preparing as a real estate community.
Okay. Well, this is a different conversation. So I'm going to open a door here, Teresa. So for anybody who's gone through our training, you have to think logically of what's coming from everything we just discussed. So if we have a new payment rail, that then everything that money moves only on the US rail through FedNow, and then we have a US digital dollar, that then not only are you using their rail, but you're using their currency to move all money in America, right? That means all your homes, earnest money, movement of all money for all assets go through their dollar at some point. Do you understand what I'm saying? So as professionals, one of the things that got me when I met Teresa is being an investment banker. And the thing she opened my eyes to, because I've been a practitioner for 20 plus years, but I'm not an investment banker. She's like, it blew me away when I came to the industry of how lax this industry is. And real estate's the only true asset class that has not been put under SEC regulation yet. So we started teaching about this in the coursework that we did. And I'm going there, Teresa, and I'm not meaning to scare anybody, but this is why this is important to think about now to answer your question, Jeff. So when it gets to the point that all this rolls out And when it gets to the point that our asset class as real estate is under the SEC laws, the 90 years of laws, then what is that going to mean for us as practitioners to actually continue operating in the industry? At some point, and I'm not saying when, I'm just saying keep an ear out for this, because it could be a very good chance that in the future that we would actually have to become SEC licensed in order to continue operating in the industry at some point. Because I can't go do a deal as an investment banker because I'm not SEC licensed. Teresa can jump in here, but do you see where I'm going from everything that we've been talking about the way the asset class is moving?
Is that a bad thing?
No, people would be better professionals. You would get rid of a lot of the people that aren't truly professionals and aren't following the laws.
Kind of what happened in the mortgage industry.
Exactly. Very similar.
Yeah, real estate is still the only, no, insurance is still out there too. But there is federal is there
licensing and insurance, though, not the same, a higher level licensing than we have in real estate, at least. Kind of between mortgage and real estate is insurance. They're not quite yet to the SEC level, but that's
which insurance, though. There's still so many different types.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the larger companies that it all rolls up to, which most of them have been rolled up into national firms. Those are private, and then they have really tight guidelines for insurance companies. I've worked at the safest insurance company on Wall Street, actually. So I'm just thinking about those regulations. They kind of keep to themselves. The worst of that was AIG in the meltdown, and they self-regulated, or they got spanked. Both. It was a little both, right? And they cleaned up their act pretty well. But yeah, real estate is still, it's the world's largest asset class. Like I always think about that, like put everything else aside. It's the world's largest asset class, and it's still run at a state by state level with no uniformity. So it is being discussed on Capitol Hill of doing national registration and having this move the SEC direction. So that means that you'd probably be needing a combination of licensing, because you'd have to transact through a broker. That's still state laws. Unless like a federal law comes out and supersedes all of those state laws, that's yet to be determined. There are very, very large companies in the process of going this route and moving the industry this direction to create derivatives products of real estate above and beyond like what the Case-Shiller index is for us, and above and beyond mortgage-backed securities and MSRs. So things are going that direction. So anyone who's interested, look up the FINRA exam. It's called the SIE, FINRA / Securities and Exchange Commission, SIE. That's the first one that you got to take. That's the first test before you then pick the specific license for what kind of activity you're going to do. So are you going to do investment banking? Then you'd want a Series 82. If you're going to be overseeing investment banking dealings or structuring deals, you want the 79. If you want to deal directly with the consumer, you need your Series 7. If you want to be dealing nationally, you want your Series 66 in conjunction with your 7. If you want to just deal in your own state, then you do the Series 63.
How do you know all that stuff?
Because that's like breathing for me.
She's been licensed in all of it. That's why she's had most of those licenses.
You are a unicorn.
She is a unicorn. Amazing. She's
I don't
amazing.
know about that. I think unicorns get hunted, right? I'd rather just be like a common.
I've never seen a dead one.
Oh, I think people like unicorns.
They're mythical.
So that answers your question. Where do we see this going at some point for practitioners? At some point, you're going to have to do all of your transactions through digital assets. And at some point, you're going to be SEC regulated in some form or another. Now, you don't have to run out and do anything today. Keep watching Jeff and what we're doing every month.
Keep your ear to the grindstone, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, I mean, besides doing that, is there anything that anyone should be doing, as a homeowner, with their money, with their home? Is there anything that anybody can be doing or preparing for, so that, because it almost seems like, to me, it's like there's going to be this transition. I would wager to guess that the majority of our country is actually going to be way behind, like just completely ignorant to all of this stuff. And then it's just going to slap them across the face. And then they're going to be resistant for a minute. And then they're going to realize they better conform. They have to conform. There's no choice. It's that or nothing. Right. And so for those that are obviously anybody listening today, clearly you either turned us on and tuned out, or you turned us on because you're actually interested in being out ahead here, or at least being prepared. And as we all know, preparation is kind of a key to a lot of things. I mean, what should you be doing as a homeowner? And what should we be doing? Like, yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about what I should do with my dollars in the bank, or with Charles Schwab, or with Edward Jones, or wherever your money is.
Two different conversations. One's the money conversation. Two is the homeowner conversation.
Yep.
So Teresa, I don't know if you want to go the scary talk about the book. I don't know if you want to go that far with it, but the money, like Teresa said, so make sure whatever institution you're investing in, whether it's a bank or whether it's a brokerage like a Charles Schwab, make sure you know what their FDIC rules are, because most of the time, if you walk in a bank, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, we have FDIC insurance. You can put as much as you want in here." And I'm like, "No, actually, you can't." And I've gone bank to bank to bank to bank after I've set up all my accounts. And even Schwab, a lot of people think, "Oh, I could put more money in Schwab because it's a brokerage account." It's not the same as a bank. That's not true. Schwab only allows up to 250,000. That's the only thing that's insured with Schwab. Fidelity and Morgan Stanley are a little different because it's based on what Teresa was talking about earlier, where you have swipe accounts, basically, where you have multiple banks that the money's going into. Morgan Stanley has two banks that they can divide the money into, that you can go up to 250 in each account. And Fidelity has a few as well. So you have to make sure wherever you're putting it, that it is in multiple banks with up to 250, not all sitting in one account. Now, if you have a bank where you have a business account and then you have a personal account, those are counted different, but you can't have 3 personal accounts with the same bank up to 250 because that doesn't apply. It's 250 collaborative under the account type, i.e. personal or business. And I know all this personally because I did all of this a year ago and spread my money across 10 banks. So
It's almost like you saw what was coming, Sheila. How would you know such things? It's so weird.
because I work with you, that's why.
Oh, that. No. If nothing else happens with consortia, I feel like Sheila sticks around because she's like, what weird conversation did Teresa have today?
What? So is real estate? I mean, real estate seems like it'd be a pretty good investment.
So anecdotally, my friend, I was about to drop his name and I'd never do that. Okay. So my friend and his family, they own a lot of developments, land. So one of their areas of land are 3 parcels. And last year they were kind of going for maybe 200 to 250 and nothing went into contract. We listed them with the Consortia Certified Asset Program. So we did all the homework, clean title, everything perfect, ready to move. And there were just no buyers for it, really. And then in the last week, he's got offers on every single piece of land for double the amount that it was last year. So everybody, and you talk to anybody who's like in this space listening, everyone's like, real estate, hard assets, just moving everything to hard assets, because we don't know the conversion rate, or that's what people think. So I'm not about fear mongering. I'm just calling it how I see it from consumers' points of view that are out there. And that's one avenue that people are taking it. And I also want to address, Jeff, your question. If you're a homeowner, there's look, most of us own 20% of our houses, 30% of our houses, right? If you're like some people in this room, you own all of your house. That's not me. I'm not talking about myself, right? But if you don't, like, we're getting to the point where
that's what she's talking about. I'm super conservative.
I want to be like Sheila as I get older. She's my mentor. And I'm like, how does Sheila live her life? That's the better way to do it. So, so for consumers, what we're doing is the appraisal. And there was the article in Housing Wire just like a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. That's what came out, like Thursday or Friday, 2 Thursday. Anyway, so it says that appraisals are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are testing out appraisal just going away. So they've chosen 6 companies that are going that direction. I can tell you that the banks, the capital markets are going to know the condition of the inside of your house. And then there are going to be really like reserve requirements. What is the true cost of home ownership? And we also heard a rumor that appraisals might fall under the jurisdiction of the Federal Reserve. I always look at the map and I'm like, where on the map is that just conversation happening? I'm like, oh yeah, Washington, D.C. So we know that because as we saw with SVB, right, on mortgages and mortgage-backed securities, that can create systemic risk. So the condition of properties really is backstopped at the end of the day by the Federal Reserve. If this was a drinking game, I'd be hammered, right? If every time we said Federal Reserve on this call, Sheila would be like, Teresa, do a shot. I'd be like, I'm going to do a shot. So
I like this. I like where this is going.
I know. I think we're going to do this on stage next week in a week from Tuesday. I was like, we should just take up like glasses of water and pretend they're shots. And I just get hammered on stage. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good
creative. We're taking fake dice like you hang on your car. We're going to get fake dice like you hang on your car, and then she's going to do fake shots.
Then we're going to see your acting ability.
I don't know if it's acting. I don't like it might. Anyway, I'm going to like call it like drunk on free money, drunk on free credit, because that's what our economy's done for the last decade. Anyway, so if you're a homeowner, I'd say bottom line, maintain the integrity of your house. That's going to matter more than anything as the entire process goes totally digital. So if it's a digital appraisal, they're just going to come through and tag everything in your house. And they're going to know exactly what the cost of home ownership is inside your house. And so if you're selling your house, if you're looking to buy a house, this goes all data. And they're going to be able to see everything. The AI is getting to the point where they can predict the cost of repairs in your house. So homeowners out there, if you're advising homeowners, maintain the quality and the integrity of the asset that you own. And I think what creeps me out the most is that if we as homeowners can't prove that we're worthy of credit, then this whole financial experiment of mortgages goes away. Guys, mortgages didn't always exist. And I think you need to Americans have like the memory of a goldfish. Like we do a lap around the goldfish bowl and we're like, we're brand new. No, mortgages didn't always exist. This came out of, I think it was like World War II, where we had to create housing stock. And these mortgages were invented so that people could afford houses because they couldn't just pay up front. So this is a privilege to have a mortgage. It's not a right. So as we understand the true cost of home ownership, we have to maintain our houses. Sorry, that was my TED talk, but I really feel adamantly about home ownership.
So is there going to be some sort of a conversion at some point? Because we all bought our homes in dollars. And now all of a sudden you're going to have all these homes that were purchased and you have a mortgage in dollars. And now you're going to be shifting to a different currency. I mean, how's that all going to take place?
Well, I can't imagine a depegging from the dollar to dollar value. I can't imagine that.
So dollar for dollar is the guess.
That's my guess for the whole thing. I think when we say we don't like, what is the value of that going forward? Excuse me. How does that play out versus other central bank currencies that are coming out? Because the value of the dollar matters when you get to an international scale and how strong is our currency versus other currencies, because that impacts trade balances, how affordable or how cheap are imports that come into us as consumers. So I think when we talk about the stability of the dollar, that's where it comes into place. I would wager a guess that it would be dollar equals dollar of digital currency. That's my guess. But, they haven't announced any of this stuff. So I'm just guessing.
That would be freaking complicated if it's not.
Well, we're not as concerned about the dollar to dollar. We're more concerned about the people who, through all of this process that's happening, and that what she's talking about with rates going up again Wednesday, and there's concerns about the HELOCs or people who took out home equity. Everybody said that in the last crash, we've had more people that have equity in their home than at any other time. And so people weren't concerned about a crash because it was like 30% equity in people's homes. Well, what they weren't talking about is a lot of those people through COVID wound up taking out home equity loans. And so they actually don't have 30% equity in their homes now because they were taking out money to try to survive through COVID. So if we wind up with a lot of foreclosures coming down the pike because of what people did to survive, then it becomes a different topic, more similar to what we had in 2008, even though we don't believe it's going to hit the street the same way, because we have friends that are Wall Street is going to the back door of mortgage companies to buy for pennies on the dollar what's sitting on their books that they need to move. And we know that's happening. So not saying it won't happen in the sense of the effect of the people who are going to wind up losing their homes because they're over leveraged now because of taking out a second loan. We're saying it's not necessarily going to be as public as it was the last time. It'll be handled differently.
Can you explain what you think that means exactly? When you say that Wall Street's going behind, I mean, how is that going to impact us publicly, as you say?
Well,
or just impact us, period.
Think about this. Who owns most of the homes in America?
Banks?
Who actually are the owners?
Was it Fannie, Freddie? Is that where you're going?
Nope. Research sometime who owns the most homes in America. Companies. So you have to look at if companies are buying.
You're talking about like the Blackstone type stuff.
Yeah, bigger than them, but yeah, similar. So if you have companies, Wall Street, PEs, if they're buying tranches or they're buying mortgages that need to get off the books, or if they're saving people from foreclosure because they're just taking it off the hands of the bank or whatever they're doing, people are still losing their homes, just in a different way.
What does that look like?
Well, think about the rest of the world. How many people own properties in the rest of the world? Do most other countries have people owning properties?
I don't think a lot of Americans are too privy to that.
Yeah, the American dream is what it is because it doesn't exist in other countries. So consortia is growing and expanding into other countries, and home ownership doesn't exist in the rest of the world. The banking system, mortgages, I'm going to say it again, it's a privilege. It's not a right. It doesn't exist. America is a great social experiment in democracy, in our financial systems. And
that's what the lawsuit against NAR was, right? To get rid of the buyer agency being paid by the seller. And ultimately, if that all goes away, then that again makes us like other countries where they have maybe a listing agent, but no buyer agency. And then the country is predominantly more rentals, and the big companies or the government or whoever owns the properties, and then you're just a tenant. So, and if you look statistically from something we talked about, I think on the last show, that there are more apartment buildings being built than in the last 40 years right now. Mm-hmm. So apartment buildings are being built in the area where I'm at in Texas. My city has no single family homes being built, all multifamily. A law is being fought against that just got passed in Washington for Arlington, Virginia, to turn an entire area that was historically legally only allowed to be single family homes built. It's now all been turned into multifamily, and people are going crazy. So if you understand where I'm going with that, when we see ultimately how is this going to shake out for us as a country, if more people are losing their homes and more big companies are buying them and more apartment buildings are being built and more land's being turned into change to where you can only build multifamily on it, guess where that pushes us towards?
That's scary. That doesn't sound very, very good for our industry. If that's
buy as much real estate as you can. Buy.
That becomes the marketing ploy, huh?
I don't see why not. I mean, I'm not a panic kind of person, but I do think that's really important. I think that we go out with that message as practitioners and to the homeowners and say, what a beautiful gift we have here. Let's keep doing this.
Because then you're not controlled or as much.
Your words, not mine, but how do you go wrong by owning land? Is it
except when you need money?
Yeah, but think about in the history of the world, literally every century in the world, wars, governments, kings, everything was based on what? Land, everything, and all of history. So, like she's saying, it doesn't hurt to own land, doesn't hurt to own other properties, especially if they're multifamily.
So Laura Kujawa says, made a reference to China and the Evergrande group. It's really interesting. That's the second time that's come up in the last hour and a half of my life. That was on the call before this, Sheila.
Somebody else Googled it besides Laura.
Yeah. So somebody else brought this to my attention too.
And that was because you said, go Google it, and that's what they did. Thank you, Laura. Well,
that's one group.
Yeah.
That's one group.
I guess go ask ChatGPT, Laura, see what it says. And then that's another topic for other days. I mean, it's happening everywhere, but just I was snipping some articles this morning about just AI and I think it's far scarier than good, but we kind of all have our blinders on to the good or the efficiencies that it's creating for writing scripts or captions or blogs. Or exams and all of the, nobody's got opening their eyes up to what this can all mean.
It is busy right now. That's funny. She's saying ChatGPT right now. That's hilarious.
You gotta buy the upgraded one, Laura. You got to get the subscription. I think it's $20 a month. Funny. Yeah, it's busy right now because the 25 people watching this are all chat GPTing right now. Fascinating. Well, ladies, how do you want to summarize or end this? What are your parting thoughts for today?
I like this tagline that I just made up for it's more of a mantra for myself. I'm going to say, planning, not panic.
Yep.
Yeah. Just know it's coming. Figure out what that means in your life and your financial world.
Yep.
Just plan. That's all you can do.
And if anybody on here wants more of you guys, they don't want to wait for, once a month, because that's all we do. How can they get into your world?
RE Consortia, RECONSORTIA. If I could do that again and name the company something easier, I would. I would go back in time. That's all right. It is what it is now.
So that's your specialty.
Yeah, marketing is not the part of my brain that shines the brightest. That's for sure. So I would go there. There's a training community there. We also have lots of stuff on YouTube, constant conversations that are happening. We have some really cool consumer-facing products that are coming out soon. One is to check your property taxes to see if you're eligible for a reduction in property tax. The other one that's coming out is an appliance checkup to see what the life of your appliance is. So when something breaks, should I go fix it or should I go buy something new? We think that these are really good for the consumer as the markets and, uncertain times, let's call it, some choppy water. So we're trying to do everything that's really good for the consumer and put all those records on blockchain. So shameless plug. That's what we've got going on, very consumer focused. So if you join the community, you will get the first updates about all that stuff. And it really gives you a reason to go reach back out to all of your clients and stay in front of them. So we're super excited about that.
Well, we'll have to make that a episode.
Fascinating. We would love that.
Cool. Yeah. Whenever it's getting close, we'll talk offline. All right, ladies. Well, thanks for rocking our worlds once again. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for hearing us out.
It's always good to know. This is good to know stuff. So thank you so much. Go get into their world if you want more. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next month sometime. Just keep a look at the LCA calendar, and you both just keep doing what you do.
You're amazing. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, LCA. Thank you, Jake.